this probably looks different from the other videos that I have up on my page right now, but that's because I'm filming this in my college dorm. I recently moved out back in August and I'm here at college, and this also looks different because I'm filming on an actual camera and not my iPhone. What? We can lend them at the library, so I thought I'd test it out and give you guys some higher quality videos. So without further ado, I'm going to get started with the tutorials. I know that's probably why you guys clicked on the video, but I just need to put my wig cap and my costume on, and I'll be back in just a second. Alright, we're back with my wig cap and my costume on, so let's get right into the tutorial. So before I put on any kind of makeup on my face, if I'm wearing lenses, I always want to start with those, just because if you put lenses on after you do your makeup, it basically it's riskier because you could get bacteria in the lens, and that in your eye is not fun, and it'll just be either irritating or it could do some damage. I've never had it happen personally because I have put lenses in after my makeup before. And that's usually when I wear mesh lenses where I can't see out of them. So, I mean, if I can't see out of them, how am I going to do my makeup with them on? So you just want to make sure that put them in before your makeup if you can, but if you have to put them in afterwards, then just be as safe as possible. So for Mona today, I'm going to be using these natural kind of green lenses. Here, I'll pull them out and show them to you. If the camera will focus, you can see they're like a nice light desaturated green, and I just don't really have some that fit her perfect eye color accurate to character, but I think that these guys will work pretty nicely because they are that kind of toned down look. So to put lenses in my eyes, there's this kind of little hack that I always just kind of like to do. So I'll look right into my mirror and I'll pull my bottom lid down, but I'll also tilt my head down at the same time. And so you can see all of that white of my under eye just kind of exposed. And then I'll just push the lens up into that part of my eye. And try not to blink while you do this, because blinking is what causes it to pop out. But then once I have it in my eye and it's sticking to it, I lift my top lid up so that it doesn't get stuck on the lid, and then it just lays flat on the eye. And then you blink and it's pretty much all in. Alright, now that my lenses are in, we can actually start with the makeup. The first step that I always have for makeup is definitely primer, unless of course we want to start with washing our face. I do that even before I put the wig cap on, but for makeup, I always start with primer. And the two primers that I'm going to be using today are the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer and the L'Oreal Paris Prime Lab Primer, which is just going to serve as our color corrector. So first, for our Power Grip Primer, this is basically just going to make sure that my makeup doesn't move throughout the day. This stuff is great if you're going to convention and you feel like you either get really oily or your makeup just tends to slip around a lot. It just really stops that from happening, especially if you're just moving around about all day, just in the elements and such. But basically I just take a little bit on my fingers and I rub it in between them. And then I just kind of start to apply it in a tapping motion, just all over my face, wherever I would really put my foundation and my cream products, because this is what's really going to hold it there. And then once you have it all tapped into the skin, you're going to wait about 30 seconds for it to get tacky before you put anything else onto it. That's really the trick with this. Alright, now that I've waited the 30 seconds, I'm going to show you really what the effect of this is that you won't really get from any other type of primer. And by type of primer, I mean if you're using a poreless primer, a mattifying primer. If you're using a gripping primer, this is what should happen. You don't have to use the e.l.f. specific, but that's just the one that I prefer. So when you use a gripping primer, it's going to leave your face very tacky. And if you can see that right there, my skin is sticking to my fingers because it's sticky, tacky residue on my face, which is really what's going to grip that foundation. So now that I have that all set up, I'm going to go in with my color correcting primer. And this is a green tone just because I have a lot of redness from my acne that I don't really want peeking through my foundation. This step is optional because I know other people do not have the same skin as me, but if you do find yourself wanting to cover up some redness underneath your foundation because you just find that it pokes out a bit too much, this stuff is awesome. It's very subtle, but it really just neutralizes the redness and gets it done. I just like to take a little bit onto my fingers and then just rub it in between. Just really nice and gentle because we don't need a lot. A little goes a long way. And you'll see it right on this main guy right here, this really red, kind of an almost inflamed area. And I'll just add a little bit of that color corrector on top, and I'll just start to buff it out with my finger. And you can already see that that's kind of getting neutralized. It's still pretty dark, but it's not here to be like a concealer or a foundation. It's just getting rid of some of that redness so that it kind of just gives us a nicer canvas to work on when we're putting on our foundation and stuff. Now that our base is all primed, we're going to go in with our foundation. The foundation I'm using today is the L'Oreal Paris Infallible Foundation in the shade 395. This is a liquid foundation, and I just like to give it a good shake before I use it. And I take it, and it's a pump, and I just like to pump a couple pumps out onto my hand. And then I take a damp sponge like this, if the camera would like to focus, and I just pick that up a little at a time with the sponge, and then I just start applying it to the general areas of my face where I would usually do my foundation, kind of avoiding like my eye area since I usually put my concealer there, and we don't want to layer up too much because it might look a little bit cakey if we do. But just in general, put it nice on top of where you like laid up all that primer. Make sure it's nice and even. That's why I like to use the sponge. It doesn't have as much streaks, but if you prefer to use a brush works perfectly fine too. But that's pretty much it. Foundation's pretty simple. Now that our foundation is all laid down, we're going to go in with concealer. The concealer that I'm using is the e.l.f. Flawless Brightening Concealer because I'm a very pale person and I do need to brighten up my under eyes. So I like to just take it, it's like a little clicker, and it pushes out the product through this little tip. And I just like to take it and put it underneath my eyes in the corner. Very minimal with this. I don't do the big triangles because it's just not really what I prefer. And then I go up on this part of my eye, and I do some on the lid just because I don't have an eye primer, so my concealer basically serves as the primer for my eyeshadow and such. But if you use an eyeshadow primer like a base like that, that's perfectly fine. I've used them before, they work very well. And then I also like to take it in between my eyebrows onto the tip of my nose and the middle of my chin. I have to push out a little bit more product sometimes. So onto the part of my chin, and then sometimes I also like to go over this little area by my nose where I get a lot of smile lines, just to add some more coverage to that. And then taking the same damp sponge, I just like to buff that out while it's still wet. I don't let it dry down or anything. I don't find that it does anything for me if I just like let it dry. I just do it when it's wet. And then after I do the blending of my concealer, I do something a little bit different before I set my face. Well, I do set my face, but not in the way that most people usually do. Just because this specific way it gives me a lot of what's it called? It gives me a lot of like length to my makeup. Like I can wear it and I won't get oily since I'm a very oily person. But what I like to do while my creams are on my face and they're still wet and they're not set with powder or anything, I like to go in with my setting spray. So this is the e.l.f. Stay All Night Microfine Setting Mist, and this stuff is awesome. As you can see from how low it is, I love this guy a lot. So basically, I give it a good shake like that, and then I just spray it generously all over my face while these creams are still setting, just so that it can just really lock in before I add that powder to my face. And to speed up the process, I like to use a fan. But that's my base all done. My creams are all finally set, so it's time to go in with some translucent powder. The translucent powder I'm using is the L'Oreal Paris Hydra Perfect powder in the shade 916, which is the translucent powder. And I just like to take, again, that same damp sponge, and I pick up some of the product on the end of it like this, and then I dab off the excess onto the back of my hand, just because I don't like to have that kind of cakey look to my under eyes. And if you can see here, I'll zoom up close so you can really get the comparison. This eye I'm going to set, and you'll see the other eye in the light. So I like to just look into my mirror and place that powder. You can already see it making a difference, I hope. And I like to put some on top of my eye just to get ready for that powder, the eyeshadow. And if I shift my head in the light, you can see how this side, which isn't set, is shinier compared to this side, which has just been mattified by the powder. And this is really just going to lock in and keep your makeup lasting practically all day. I've done this at cons and stuff, and it's just done me so much justice. So I definitely recommend. Another reason why I like to set my face with powder before I go in with any of my other products after I've done my cream base is because I like to go in with a powdered blush right after. Now this blush is the Sailor Moon X Colourpop Cat's Eye Powder Blush, and if you can see it on camera, it's very sparkly and it's also very pigmented. So if you don't like a lot of blush in your look, you're definitely going to want to go light-handed with this. But I basically just take a fluffy brush like this, and I dip right into my product, tap off some excess, and right here, like kind of lined up with my nose but also underneath my eye, I just like to brush on to the apples of my cheeks. And I know that it's a really big trend right now with makeup to take the blush all the way up and kind of near your eye just to give it that lifted look. But since Mona has such a rounded face, since she's got those big eyes and that like round jaw, to give yourself a more rounded look, you want to take it to the apples of your cheeks. It just really draws like the center of like focus just to like the actual center of your face instead of making you look like snatched and lifted, if that makes any sense. And just to kind of warm up the face even more after adding the blush to my cheeks, I just like to take a little bit more, tap off the excess, and I like to go into the tip of my nose and then some on my chin as well. But other than that, that's pretty much it for blushing. Now, after I do my blush, I usually jump right into my eyes, but since I want to do my eyes kind of all together for this tutorial, like a more step-by-step, showing you the shadow, the eyeliner, the mascara, the lashes and such, I think I'm going to jump into contour now. So I'm basically going to take a little bit kind of a darker, cooler shade for my contour, since I find that warmer shades tend to look a little bit orange on me. I'm taking it from the LA Colors Everyday Nude palette, which I just got in a set of 3 at like a drugstore, like a Walgreens or something, I think. And I'm just going to take it. Here's what the shade looks like. My palette's kind of busted, so don't worry about that. But it's just this kind of like cool kind of tan shade, and I take it on this kind of flat brush. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see up close. So on my nose, I basically just take this flat brush and I just kind of curve it around the tip just to kind of snatch that inner portion. I think I just flicked a little bit of it into my eye, but we're not going to talk about that. So I'm just going to take it and then just keep rounding it about my nose and stuff. And then you can also take it in just a little bit more you want an even more kind of snatched nose tip, since having like the nose tip like this and like adding that shadow really just kind of adds that definition to your face. And if you can see from my side profile, I have this bump in my nose, so whenever I do contour that's like straight up my nose like that, you can always kind of see it accentuated, and I'm not really about that right now. So what I like to do is I take it a little bit up the tip of the nose, but then I skip this middle section right here, and then I take it just a little bit down these parts of like my inner eye socket, so that it looks like it's all kind of a connecting nose bridge with the shadow from looking dead on. Up close you can obviously see the bump more prominent, but if I was to zoom out, which I'm doing here, it just looks pretty sleek, pretty good. I hope, crossing my fingers. But that's pretty much what I do for the contouring portion of my nose, as well as just kind of buff it out, play with it a little bit, depending on your nose type, shape, anything like that. Do your nose contour how you prefer it, but this is just what works for me personally. And then after that, I just like to add a little bit of highlight. So I have this little highlight shade from the same palette, and I just like to take that and put a little bit onto the tip of my nose, and then right in between my eyebrow kind of area. Not really anything on like the bridge, just really minimal, because you can kind of have that cast sometimes that highlight leaves behind, so I just like to minimalize that. So I put it on areas where the light is really going to focus, like on the tip of it, and then right here where it just kind of dips down. I feel like the light always kind of catches a lot, but aside from that, that's pretty much how I do my nose contour. Now that I've finished up my contour, I'm going to jump right into my lip combo. Basically, it's really simple. I just take these two shades from the Superstay Matte Ink Liquid Lipstick by Maybelline, and these shades are shade 80 Ruler and shade 5 Royalist. So basically I take shade 5 and I just apply that to the bottom of my lip in like the center, and then in like a little heart shape on my top lip. And then what I really like to do, which helps me just get the look that I'm going for in general, is I take a Q-tip and I just start buffing it out, because a little goes a long way with this lip product. So you can see it's already got my whole bottom lip just already covered, even from just that little middle section. Now I'm going to just start doing the top lip ever so gently. And you want to make sure that when you're doing your lips, you can overline your cupid's bow just a bit if you want a fuller look, but just make sure not to overline the corners or the edges of your lips, because that's what kind of gives them the fake overlined look instead of like that nice and plump look that most people want to go for. So if you keep the sides of your lips more natural and just kind of focus on just gently buffing out that top part, you can really create some fullness and have it still looking kind of natural. Now I'm going to take our other shade, and I'm just going to place a little bit of this, since it's so dark, and do just a swipe down the middle of my bottom lip, and it's that same kind of heart in the middle of my top lip. And I'm going to take the smaller side of this Q-tip, and I'm just going to start blending it out into this kind of like ombre. Now what this is going to do, it's going to add some dimension back into my lips and give it like a nice kind of cupid's bow effect. And it might smallen, if that's a word, shorten up kind of my top lip, which I do enjoy the look of, because it kind of adds that kind of faux shadow. And I'm just going to just buff out with little tapping motions on my bottom lip, just so it has that kind of ombre. And then it's optional, but also sometimes I like to go in with a little bit of gloss, which also just kind of adds to the fullness of your lips. And I just take a bit of that and I place it on just this top part of my cupid's bow, little dabbing motions, and then a little bit on my bottom lip. And that's my lips all done. The last thing that I have to do now before I actually get started on my eyeshadow is my eyebrows. So I'm going to look for a kind of color that just matches as close to the wig that I'm using as possible, and luckily I have the wig that I'm using right here with me. So this is this kind of wig that I'm using. I've seen other people have Mona wigs that are like a deeper purple, but mine is kind of more accurate to like this kind of grayish purple that she has like in game. So I found this shade right here from the Blushing Pink LA Colors palette, another one of my little broken from the 3 set that I got from the drugstore, and I think that this shade is a pretty close match. As you can see, some of like the colors in her hair are just kind of like that warmer or that cooler, they're kind of like a layer bit effect in there. But basically I'm just going to take a small angled brush like this, and I'm going to dip that right into this color right here. Then tap off any excess, because fallout, we want to avoid fallout as much as possible, especially since it's such a dark color. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see really just what I'm doing here. I have a reference image pulled up to the side of how her brows look, and I'm just going to try and mimic that on my brow as much as possible. So she's got really an angled look here, so I'm going to start by doing some brush strokes downward and just picking up more color as I go if I need to. This is a drugstore palette, so it's not the most pigmented, so I might need some more than I originally thought. I'm just going to start creating that shape on my brow, just kind of above the actual brow that I have. And then I'll just cover it up with some concealer afterwards. She's got this kind of dip here. I don't know if I'd call it a dip, it's more like a bump in her brow near like the base. It's kind of thicker in the front. But yeah, other than that, that's kind of how her brow is laid out. And see, you can kind of see the hairs that I still have right here, but what I'm going to do to fix that up is I'm going to take some concealer on another small angled brush, but this one I've dedicated specifically to concealer. If you can kind of see that kind of look that it has, you can see like the product and stuff on it. I just like to take a little bit of that product onto this brush and then just kind of pack it on top of those hairs just to kind of slick them down so that it kind of gives the illusion that this is my brow going up instead of actually going down. And now this would be more successful if you kind of like either glued up the end of the brow or brushed some gel through that, but I didn't end up doing that in this video. So if you want a better look, then you can always go check out the other tutorial I have up on my page, which is how to glue up your eyebrows. I went and did my other brow off camera, but now we can officially start with the eyeshadow. So I'm going to be using the Sailor Moon X Colourpop Pretty Guardian palette for the base of my eyeshadow today, and I'm just going to dip into this shade right here, which is Moon Castle, and I'm just going to take that and I'm going to place that kind of all over my lid and just in my crease area right here with a big fluffy brush. And I don't have to be super careful since this is just kind of like going to serve as like a base for our darker colors to kind of sit and get blended out on. But other than that, I just kind of buff it out on my eyelids like so. And I take it just a little bit to the outer corner of my lower eyelid. I just kind of like to tap it into place. Then once that's all buffed out, then I can move on to my other colors. Now to start deepening up my eyeshadow, I'm going to go in with the Sephora I Love palette, and I'm going to take this middle top shade right here on a smaller fluffy brush like this. Remember to tap off the excess so that you don't have any fallout. So I'm going to close my eye like this, and I'm just going to kind of focus this right here in the crease, and I can zoom in to get a better look at what I'm doing. But here we are. I'm just generously kind of tapping it in there, right in the kind of area I put that kind of blending shade. And you can see that this eye socket's already much deeper than this one with the added shadow. I'm just going to kind of wing it out a little bit just to kind of mimic her like eye shape. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, just in these kind of sweeping tapping motions, just so I can evenly apply it with minimal streaking. You can see that it's deepened it up quite nicely. Another thing that I like to do with my eyeshadow is follow the East Asian trend of Aegyo-sal, and I think that it just kind of makes my eyes so much bigger and so much more animated. And I'm going to take the top shade right here, it's to the left on the Sephora I Love palette. I'm going to take that on a very small angled brush, and I'm going to start right underneath kind of where my eye is, like my iris, and I'm just going to gently kind of do flicking motions outwards, just defining my under eye right there. And you can already see the difference, how it's kind of taking the bottom part of my eye down more on my face, so it takes up more space so that it gives my eye a bigger effect. Now that I'm done kind of adding that definition to my eye look, I'm going to start adding some shimmers. This is one of my favorite parts, just kind of because it adds like a pop to my eye makeup. And as you can see on this Sailor Moon X Colourpop palette, this shimmer is very well loved. I just like to use it in most of my makeup looks because Colourpop shimmers are just they're so good, and they're just so nice and kind of like glossy in a way. You'll see when I put it on. So here it is. I'm just going to pick it up directly with my finger, and you can kind of just see how that shines already. It's so much prettier in person. I don't know if the camera does it justice, but you can just see that kind of shine and that shimmer. And what I like to do is I just take it and I just directly apply it to like the inner half of my eyelid, so that this part is still like the shadow, this part is like the shimmer. I don't know if you can see it, but it just kind of adds like a nice little pop to my look. Still keeping it nice and simple, but it's just really kind of elegant and pretty, and I do it on both sides. And then I also like to take a little bit of this other shimmer, a lighter kind of whiter shimmer as opposed to the pink shimmer. And I take that a little bit on my pinky finger, and I just go right on like the larger portion of my under eyelid, and I just place it like right there, just to kind of like contrast with the Aegyo-sal, so that it kind of gives my it's like a lighter on the inside, darker on the outside, but still giving that fullness that the Aegyo-sal already has. And I just like to do it on both of my little lower eyelids, and it just kind of gives a nice pop to my look. My base eyeshadow is all finished, so now it's time to move on to eyeliner. Probably one of my favorite parts, because this is where my looks just kind of transform into the character. The eyeliner that I'm using today is the NYX Epic Wear Liquid Eyeliner in brown. I prefer brown liners just because I think that they're more soft with the character and such, and when it comes to cosplay makeup I just kind of prefer to have everything just kind of melting into each other seamlessly. Now I'm going to take my reference picture of Mona, and I'm just going to look at how her eye is kind of shaped in that kind of angular way, and I'm just going to try and replicate that on my eye. And I'm going to get extra close and zoom in so you can see this process super up close and personal. And I take my little tip and I just like to wipe off the excess so I get this really thin and really precise kind of tip. and I'm just going to look into my little handheld mirror and just start kind of mapping out what I want to do with the shape. So hers kind of just angle up like this. So I'm going to start not really directly on my eye, but just kind of where I want that wing to be. And I'm just going to start following it onto my lid and keep the top kind of that like animated look, nice and round. So not like a super crazy wing, but definitely a higher angled one. And keep it kind of thick because it's just, looking at the reference image, it's just kind of how her eyes are shaped. And just go right over the lid. You can take your time with this more if you need to. I just tend to be kind of quick with how I apply my eyeliner, just because I find it easier for myself. I draw in a little bit of that corner, just to kind of bring it down more. Now here's where I take my eyeliner to kind of the next level. I do some bottom liner, but I don't do it with my actual eyeliner. No, I do it with eyeshadow and the little angled brush from earlier. So first, I like to start off with a deep brown like this, and I pick up just a little bit on that angled brush, and I start kind of directly from like this inner portion of my eye right here. And I just kind of start to like just drag it down a little bit because we're going to be creating like a false lower lash line. And creating this false lower lash line, I'm just going to drag it down until it kind of like a little bit halfway on my lid, like a little bit to like the bottom of this, and up until I reach that little point. And then I'm going to switch from the brown to a black eyeshadow, which is going to blend more into this deep eyeliner that we just did. So I'm going to take it on the same small brush after wiping it off just a little bit, and I'm just going to start slowly connecting these two lines right here. So you can see that now with that black, that brown has blended right up into this eyeliner, creating this false lower lash line that we have here. Now for the final step of my eyeliner, I'm going to pick up the NYX liquid liner again, and this time I'm just going to draw on a couple false bottom lashes. Now this part can be pretty tricky, so take your time with it if you need to. I like to get this brush super extra thin by just wiping off a couple sections, and I look into my handheld mirror and I kind of tilt my head in the way where I'll have the most kind of like surface area to do this. And I just kind of take it and I start from this part and I just kind of wing it out just a little. Just remember, you can go slow and steady until you have as many little bottom lashes as your heart desires. I'm gonna go do my other eye off camera and then we'll get right into mascara. Alright, I've got this other eye all finished up, so now we're gonna jump right into mascara. So the mascara that I'm using today is the Thrive Liquid Lash Extensions, and it's just the black shade. And what I like to do is I like to just coat all of like my top eyelashes, just so that when I add the false eyelashes, they just blend in really nice. Then I also take a little bit of it and I do just these little inner corner bottom lashes right here, just so they kind of blend in to the fake bottom eyelid I did right here. I feel like it just kind of completes it and just kind of makes it that kind of 3D look still. But other than that, it's pretty simple. I don't like curl my lashes or anything or do anything crazy before putting on falsies. And the falsies I use, by the way, are just some generic like anime lashes that I got off of Amazon, which are very crusty, by the way. I think I'm well in need of a new kind of set of them. But I'm just gonna put some lash glue on these bad boys and I'll show you how I do that in just a second. Now, for all of you who have put on false eyelashes before, you probably already know this, but if you're new to false eyelashes, I'll show you guys how to apply the glue, how to know when they're dry, and then how to apply them. So first what we're going to do is we're going to take off our set of false eyelashes. I've got one right here, and I'm going to take my lash glue, which is just the Duo Clear Lash Glue I got from the drugstore. I'm just going to take some of that and apply it in kind of a nice evenly thin layer on the band right here, and I'll show you how it looks in just a second. So I've applied all of the glue to this with the band and such, and I don't know if the camera picks it up, but you can kind of see that it has like a bluish tint to it when it first goes down. Other glues, if you layer it up, it'll be like a little whiter and it just dries clear and transparent. But what we're going to do with this is we're going to wait for just a little bit for the glue to kind of set and dry until it's kind of transparency, just a little bit blue on the band, and then we're going to apply it. That way it's easier to apply and it sticks to the eye better, as opposed to a wet lash, which is just going to slip around and make it super hard to apply. So I'll be right back when this is dry enough. Alright, I'm back and my lashes are pretty dry, I'd like to think now. As we can see here, they have a pretty clear band as opposed to that blue we were seeing earlier. And what really stepped up my lash game is definitely these eyelash specific tweezers. I got them with like a bottom lash kit, but I'm sure you can just like find them online or in stores. They're really awesome because they just like allow you to have a lot more mobility when putting on your eyelashes as opposed to doing it with just your fingers. So I just like to take it, and usually I just hold it from the middle part right here, and I just look into my mirror and I just kind of like sketch out where I kind of want this to sit on my eye. I usually like leave a little bit for the inner corner, and I just kind of start to place it right in that middle part of my eye, and now I can go in with my fingers and then just kind of pinch and adjust the lash and stick it down to my eyelid so that it sits nice and seamless. Let it sit, tap it on for a little bit, but once you do that, you should be all good to go, and it should not really want to come off. So there you go. Now, just to finish off the face, before I put on the wig, I'm going to take the setting spray from earlier in the video, and I'm just going to give my face one nice good spritz down, shake it up again, and then I'm just going to close my eyes. Give myself a nice generous spritz, and then we're just going to fan it dry like we did this time. But that's it for the makeup portion of the video. I'll be back with my wig on to show you guys the final look, but I hope that this helped, and I'll see you in a second. I'm back and I've got everything on, and this is the final look. I hope that this video helped you guys, and I can't wait to see you guys in my next tutorial. Hopefully I'll keep the quality and I'll be doing something even more fun next time. But until next time, I'll see you guys later. Toodles!